It looked harmless enough, just a dried, withered monkey's paw. The old soldier said it could grant 3 wishes, anything your heart desired. But every gift, he warned, comes at a terrible price. We laughed at the warning. Who wouldn't? How could a little paw change our lives? We didn't know then that by the time the 3rd wish was made, we'd give anything to take the first one back. The fire crackled merrily in the hearth, casting flickering shadows on the 4 faces gathered around its warmth. Outside, the November wind rattled the casement windows, but within the room, all was peace and quiet, until suddenly a loud rapping at the door startled us all. White teeth flashed in nervous grins. Hands sought out the weapons secreted about their persons. In moments like these, it was always the same. Which one of them had summoned the creature? Which one of them had dared to defy the ancient pact by crossing over from the world of the living into this realm of the dead? I sat bolt upright in bed, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The room was dark, the curtains drawn against the daylight, and there, sitting on the end of my bed, was the old soldier. His face creased and lined like a walnut, his eyes glittering like chips of obsidian. Startled, I could only stare at him, while he regarded me silently, his gaze boring into mine. Then he began to speak in a voice that was like gravel grinding on stone. "You should not be here," he rasped. "Not yet, anyway. There are things you need to know, things you need to be prepared for." He told me how he had fought in many wars, seen much death, and how death had become something of an obsession with him. He had heard tales of a monkey's paw that could cheat its master. Or so he thought, one final time, granting the wielder 3 wishes before passing on to another. But each wish, he warned, came at a terrible price. Desperate for just one more chance to see his long-dead son, he crossed over into the world of the dead to seek out the monkey's paw. And he found it in the hand of a skeletal monkey clutching a tattered scroll. With shaking hands, he reached out and seized it. And in that instant, he heard a voice like the rustling of dead leaves whisper in his ear, "You have cheated death once too often, mortal. Now you shall serve it." And then he was here, cursed to wander between worlds until his own death, doomed to warn others away from the path he had chosen. But there were others who had taken the paw from him since he first crossed over, others who had wished for power, for gold, for love, and had paid the terrible price for doing so. Now he was here to offer me a choice, to allow me to join him in his eternal torment, or to send me back to the world of the living with the knowledge of what lay beyond and the choice of whether or not I wanted any part of it. When he was gone, the weight of his warning pressed down upon me, heavy and suffocating. I recalled the dreams that had plagued me since childhood. Dreams of a vast shadowy realm where the air hung thick and heavy, where twisted creatures lurked at every turn and beckoned with fingered hands. And now I knew that they had been showing me what lay on the other side, that they had been trying to warn me, just as the old soldier had. And then I remembered the paw, the withered monkey's paw that I had found nestled amongst the trinkets in my late grandfather's antique shop. It had been no more than a curiosity until the old soldier had visited, his eyes lighting up with sudden recognition when he saw it. "That's the paw," he breathed, and he told me of its power and the terrible price that must be paid for wielding it. With shaking hands, I clutched the paw. It was cold to the touch, like the grip of death itself. I struggled with my decision, torn between the safety of the life I knew and the morbid curiosity that gnawed at my insides. The dreams had never come since I had found the paw. Was that why? Had the paw somehow sensed my awareness of the world of the dead and chosen me as its next wielder? At last, I made my choice. I would cross over and see for myself what lay beyond the veil. The soldier had given me a way back, and I intended to use it. The transition was instantaneous. One moment I was standing in my room, the next I was in the shadowy realm. Before me stretched a landscape, as alien and unsettling as any nightmare. Jagged obsidian spires scraped at a sky choked with ash clouds. Twisted, gnarled trees clawed at the ground with skeletal fingers, their branches bare save for a few withered leaves that rustled ominously in the breeze. The air was heavy and oppressive, charged with a palpable sense of menace. And all around me, the whispers of unseen things grew louder, more insistent. They seemed to emanate from the very stones beneath my feet, from the trees that surrounded me, from the shadows themselves. Then I saw them, the twisted creatures from my dreams, gaunt and skeletal, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. They glided through the landscape with unnatural grace, their whispers growing louder, forming words that chilled me to the bone. "Welcome," they hissed, "to the place where souls are broken, where hope is lost, and despair reigns supreme." In their midst I saw him, the old soldier, his form shimmering like a mirage. With a desperate cry, I ran towards him, but he only beckoned me to halt. His eyes filled with a sorrowful understanding. He told me that I had crossed over completely now, that the paw had done its work, and there was no going back. It was then that I understood the terrible truth. The paw had not simply granted me access to the world of the dead. It had brought me here, trapped me here. The warnings the old soldier and the others had given me echoed in my mind, each word a hammer blow that drove home the reality of my fate. And then I felt it, the cold dread that had been growing within me since I had first set foot in this realm, now overwhelming me, paralyzing me with fear. My blood ran icy cold through my veins. My breath caught in my throat. My limbs grew leaden, my vision narrowed, and the whispers of the creatures closed in around me, their voices growing louder, more insistent. I stumbled, falling to my knees in the dust, my hands scrabbling at the ground, my fingernails digging into the parched earth. I screamed, a primal, wordless sound that tore from my throat and echoed across the desolate landscape. The creatures stirred, their heads turning in unison, their glowing eyes fixed upon me, their forms coalescing, becoming more solid, more real. They were coming for me. I knew then that the price of the paw was not merely a warning, but a death sentence. Trapped in a world where hope offered no solace, where despair held sway, and where death stalked ever closer, I had exchanged my life for a glimpse of oblivion. And now oblivion was claiming me as its own. My grandfather had dealt in antiques, relics of a bygone era that whispered tales of times long past. Among his wares there was a monkey's paw, shriveled and worn, yet imbued with an otherworldly aura. Little did I know then that within that gnarled, twisted wood lay a power that transcended time. A power that would unravel the very fabric of my existence. The monkey's paw promised 3 wishes, a siren's call that lured me into its treacherous embrace. In a moment of youthful arrogance, I had dismissed the old soldier's warnings as mere superstition, tales spun to cloak the paw's true nature. Oh, how I had erred! For as I stood there, trapped in the clutches of my folly, the paw's malevolent essence seeping into my soul, I realized the gravity of my mistake. Each wish I had scoffed, a separate curse, twisting my desires into instruments of torment. And now the finality of my fate pressed down upon me, suffocating, inescapable. Yet amidst the encroaching darkness, a glimmer of defiance flickered within me. If my journey had begun with arrogance, it would end with defiance. I would not go gentle into that good night. I would rage, I would scream, I would claw at the very heavens to find my way back to life. I may have traded my life for a glimpse of oblivion, but by God, I would drag that oblivion down with me. Oh, how the creatures recoiled at my defiant roar, their ethereal forms wavering as if in pain. Hope, however faint, surged through me. Perhaps my spirit, my refusal to yield, could yet find purchase in this realm of shades. Perhaps I could yet carve out a path back to the land of the living. Or, perhaps, and this thought sent a fresh surge of terror through me, my defiance only fueled their hunger, making me all the more delectable prey. Either way, my fate now lay in my own hands, or rather in the hands of the spirits of this realm. As the creatures advanced, their forms solidifying, their eyes gleaming with a mixture of curiosity and anticipation, I knew that my final act of defiance was about to be put to the test. Would it be enough to save me from the fate that awaited, or would I be dragged down into the abyss, lost forever to the world I once knew?